Ale tam dużego kebaba, ja miałem średni kebab, to wiesz.
Welcome, everybody. Mean to the Red Men Group live from Warsaw, Poland. I am your moderator and your host, Steve the Dean Williams. This is being brought to you by Tactical Soap. Hey, get that edge in the bedroom. Get your Tactical Soap on by going to www.tacticalsoap.com. Also, this is being brought to you by the Next 21 convention that's going on October 24th through the 27th. Get your crayons out. For more information, go to the21convention.org and you're good to go. So I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Now, before we get into our subject and everything, let's talk to our panel and we're going to go around robin like we did before. AJ, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell everybody about yourself in the world, what you do, who you are, not about your hair.
All right. What's up, gentlemen? So this has been my, third 21 convention. It's been a hell of an experience. Being in Europe is obviously different from being in the United States. And it gives you a perspective when you step outside your cultural bubble and you go somewhere else. And you realize that places are different. There's different issues, but things are very much the same with masculinity everywhere. That the same qualities that exist in one country, they exist in another. That definition of masculinity, or what makes a man, that doesn't really change place to place. It might be expressed a bit differently, but those values are always very eternal. And the conversations as well that I've had here probably been the best I've ever had, since you're talking to men from different places. Relative to myself, and I think about sort of my state of life from where I started 10 years ago, which is personal training, to now. It's been a hell of a transformation. And seeing what 21 Convention is turning into, and seeing what the men here are trying to turn themselves into, it's inspiring. It legitimately is. So.
I'm Socrates from Manning Up Smart. I help men and women navigate today's sexual marketplace, and I'm a very vocal advocate for fathers and fatherhood.
Okay, I'm Nick Krauser, krauserpoa.com. I'm probably most known for being a day game coach, teaching men how to hit on women during the day to seduce them.
My name is Richard Grannon. I run SpartanLifeCoach.com, and I predominantly focus on helping people to escape from toxic and abusive relationships with narcissists and psychopaths.
My name is John Cooper. I have a company called Art of Social, and I teach men and women how to connect, how to cultivate intimacy and romance without using game, if you like, sort of the standard game methods.
I am Anthony Dream Johnson. I do pretty much this all day, every day. For the past 13 years. And now I am the recent accidental sole owner of the Red Man Group as well as 21 Studios, and I own the majority of the convention. I'm also the sole founder of that. So that's what I do.
I'm the Black Anthony. No, I'm just joking. So I'm Steve the Dean Williams from themanmindset.com. You already know me, but let's go into it. AJ, the 21 convention, what is your experience? Tell everybody, what was it like being here in Warsaw, Poland, to be around these great men? What was your experience like and everything, man?
It's been a hell of a time. Warsaw, I mean, being in Poland, I'd never been to Poland before. It's very cool. In the United States, where I live in California. So California, it's a diverse state. The culture there is basically like avocado toast and money, which is nothing really substantial. And when you come to a place like Poland, it has a very long history. It's been here thousands of years. The people here are very obviously tied to the area with an extreme sense of hereditariness in history. It's cool. It's like I said, it's very nice to step outside of one's world and inhabit another one. And the 21 convention as well. Like for the 3 events I've gone to, each one is sort of up to the level, so to speak. Like I said before.
So I'm in a good mood.
Oh, yes. Yes,
I was lucky to be able to come in about a week early, and so being an architect, it's always interesting to see the manifestation of values and culture and society in place. And then, of course, the problem with architecture is that it's a snapshot in time that then exists for decades afterwards, and you very much see that today in Warsaw. You see a snapshot of old culture interblending with new. And the interesting element is that much of the very, very old culture, they actually had to resurrect because the city was literally ruined, that they literally flattened it post-occupancy to be a sign and a symbol to the world of Nazis' vengeance on a very, very petulant child and people that he saw in the Polish people and the Polish nation. And so it's really wondrous to see how they were very immense stewards and caretakers for their old history in the old town areas. It was also very interesting to see the current examples of Soviet bloc architecture that was going to last decades and decades and decades, still serving a utilitarian purpose. One of the most stark reminders is a very, very large governmental building right outside of our hotel. That is an immense edifice to just a very vicious control state governmental building. It's literally a stamp on the nation. And it's a vicious placement and an ugly reminder of a period that they outgrew and shed themselves of. And surrounding it is new commerce and new ideas being expressed in vertical form and some magnificent skyline. So it's from an architectural perspective, if you come down to Warsaw, you could just travel the streets and leave and feel like you've seen Poland.
Right. Quite interesting that you gave an architect's point of view, because one of the things I often coach my students on is different people see the street differently. If you walk down a busy street as a policeman or as a pickpocket or as an architect or as, say, a skirt chasing man, you're going to see the street and experience it in a very different way. So that very same area you speak about with that huge government building, I think it was one of Stalin's, I think it's 14 of them. It's 14 of them in Russia, I believe. And that is one of the main day game areas of Warsaw, because Warsaw is actually a very, very good day game city. I've been coming here 4 years. I know a lot of the guys here. Unlike most of the panel, I'm actually quite on familiar territory here, because Warsaw, looked at it from my eyes, I'm thinking it's a big city, over 1 million people. It's got a very concentrated pedestrian hub. You've got a mall, an extra train station and a bus station, which guarantees footfall. They all come through in front of this building you talk about along the park on a very narrow bottleneck. Then they come out to a metro station. Then they come out to a big shopping street. Then there's another metro station. Then there's a great little coffee street leading to a university. And for a day gamer, you're just thinking, this is awesome.
Oh, it's a total funnel.
And then you add in the fact that Polish women are hot, and it's a very slim city, and culturally they're very open to receiving the male advance. They get the whole idea of the male, female, man makes the advance, woman receives it politely and then judges upon it. So like while you're walking around intimately interested in the architecture, I'm like intimately interested at street level, thinking this is a wonderful place.
Yeah, it really is.
To follow on from my Geordie colleague here, the Scouse perspective, from a psychologist's point of view, I agree completely. Like you live inside of a reality tunnel. So I'm looking around and I look at it like through the filter of psychology. And my initial reflection on Poland and Polish people in Warsaw would be, this is a proud place. It's an intellectually curious place. It's well mannered and it's civilized. They have boundaries here. I love that. It's great. My reflections on the 21 convention as a first-time speaker here, similarly, the people that have come to the convention, as I was saying yesterday, it's a higher IQ crowd, which I actually found quite intimidating, because, you know, I could sense when I was delivering to them that they were not just keeping up with me, they were actually keeping up with me and then making their conclusions. And I was thinking, okay, I need to speak a little bit faster here. So it's been a good experience coming here, challenging experience, and I'm really, really glad I came. Thank you for having me.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm actually half Polish. My mum's Polish. Don't ask me to say any Polish because I can't. Apart from jesteś bardzo piękna, if anyone knows what that means. you'll have to look it up later. But yeah, I'm really glad I'm here. I've been wanting to come and do this talk for a while now. Yeah, it's a long time coming. There was something else I was going to say about Warsaw, but I think it's been said already. Yeah, it's a very proud place. The people, very family orientated. They're very loving. They're very giving. And there is like a sense of they want the man to be strong, and in that traditional sense. And there is that polarity there. And yeah, I just think it's this country sort of hasn't been hit with the soy boy stick yet, and it hasn't been hit with with feminism. And so it's one of the last sort of remaining places where you can come and actually be a man, I think. So probably why Anthony chose to do the event here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm known for, I came here back in March to scout the venues, get to know the city, things like that. And I fell in love with it immediately. I was blown away, very, very impressed with a multitude of things. But one of the things above all, and I don't know if I mentioned this too much so far, I think in the opening address I mentioned it briefly, but this country, and specifically Warsaw, is a city and a people that are extremely tough and masculine, but separate from the masculinity, just fucking tough as nails. This country and this city has been through hell and back multiple times. And this country and the people here, they have win or lose. You don't win everything, right? Win or lose, they're willing and they have been demonstrated the ability to fight to the fucking death for what they believe in, their home and their country. And that's one of the main reasons I chose this city and this country. These people are tough as fucking nails, and they will fight to the death for what they believe in. And I'm guessing the day will come again someday that they have to do that. Hopefully not for a long, long time, hundreds of years. But as history has shown, that's not the case usually. So fuck yeah, I love this city and I love these people.
Well, from an architect, a PUA, and a psych. Well, let me tell you something. From an ex-gigolo that ain't shit anymore, I tell you what, being able to walk out there and see all that snow on the ground, I was like, what? Oh, that means snow bunnies for y'all to understand. Brothers like snow bunny. You call it snow bunny. Anyway, so what I'm saying is I as far as the 21, I can't tell you, I love the guy, you guys out there that are here live. You guys have made the sacrifice. You guys want to learn. And I tip my hat off to all of you guys out there because you have the drive, the passion, and the discipline to want to sit and gain the knowledge. So that was what I feel is the best experience, is seeing you guys just so attentive and paying attention and asking great questions. And after it's over, coming up and talking and interacting. And I think that's the best thing. Now, with that being said, Anthony, tell us, a lot of things have been happening.
Yeah.
For the last few months, has been up and down, crazy, and all that other bullshit. But I want you to talk. You have the mic, so tell us what's going on right now as far as the Redman Group.
Yeah, just in simple terms, I wanted to clear up. So earlier this year, me and Rich Cooper had a little spat. I ended up offering to buy him out from the Redman Group, and he accepted. It was kind of a surprise thing. It was me, him, and Rolo behind the scenes working this out as the owners of the company, the founders. And so I bought him out. And then I became the controlling member of the company through 21 Studios. Recently, me and Rolo have had our fights, obviously. And then there was another member in this group that offered to buy him out. That ended up working out. He made an offer to somebody, blah, 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 behind the scenes. Basically, as he announced on his blog a couple days ago, I don't know, like a week ago now or something, he actually resigned from the company, leaving me the sole owner of the company, which was kind of interesting because I was the one who didn't really want to turn it into a company. Like him and Rich talked to me like, hey, let's start a company, make it official and stuff. That was in like early summer 2018. And I liked the way it was. We were bouncing it between 21 Studios channel and Richard Cooper's channel, Entrepreneurs in Cars. And I liked that setup. They wanted to formalize it. And eventually I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's just make a company. Work it out. And for a while it was cool. And that's like people got to know. So at the end of the day, though, now I'm the sole owner of it. So I'm like, oh shit. All right, let's just keep doing it. And you and Donovan have been killing it. All the guys, the new shows we got going. Hunter Drew's got the Patriarch show, of course, going strong every other Thursday. So yeah, it's kind of an accidental company I found myself owning now completely, but I do love it, and I'm glad we get to do it. And I know for years, I don't know if a lot of people probably don't know this, but behind the scenes, Socrates and a few others would, I really wanted to get a badass podcast for the Manosphere and for 21 Studios, and I could never quite nail that. I couldn't find the branding for it. It was at the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't find it. So we had like the 21 Convention podcast. There's old episodes of that. We had like 21 Radio as a brand, but none of those things ever took off. But the Redman Group, I think, is powerful and it's got legs. It has a strong future. And that's why we see it like this. The 21 Convention's been around for 13 years. And I think the Redman Group has a long and bright and strong future. So I'm happy to own it, even if that wasn't the intention at the beginning. Life just comes at you sometimes in weird, crazy ass ways. And so here we are in fucking Poland hosting the second episode of the Red Man Group, live from Poland.
Live from Poland. Yeah, me.
Yummy.
Yeah, me.
Facts, son.
There we go. Yes. AJ, you smooth. You dapper. You debonair.
So I've been told.
You debonair. I mean, you can woof your. If I had a wig right now, I can shake it over to the left and make the lady go, "Oh, melt." Let's talk about love, AJ. Let's talk about love. What's your take on that, sir?
Well, before you hop into this,
Anthony.
AJ has made it really. He said this, I think, at a few points on Twitter and stuff. If I'm not mistaken, it's on the Manosphere. Love is like this dirty, bad word. There's a few exceptions to that, like for the fathers talking about loving their children.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's like, well, what? You love your wife? Like, what's wrong with you? Or some shit like that, right?
Yeah.
But AJ, of course, is like,
you love a woman.
Yeah, exactly. AJ's like, fuck that shit. I'll do what I want. So I thought it was pretty cool. And I know Richard Grannon, I think, is in a similar boat. So I thought having them talk about it really, really cool. That's my spiel.
Well, love has the power to destroy and create in equal measure. Something that I realized with the Manosphere, sort of falling into it by accident the last 3 years, is that historically you were dealing with men, or it was started by men who struggled with relationships. And that's fairly well acknowledged. Like, it's pickup artistry, obviously. It was men that wanted to get laid. Okay, cool. Then it was men they want to understand women a little bit better. Maybe they had failed relationships, failed marriages, a lot of failed marriages in some cases. So you had men where they had been traumatized by their experiences. And then oftentimes it characterized the conversation. I thought excessively so at times. But then over the past, you could say roughly going on 2 decades it's been in existence, you have men now where they want to talk about relationships because they've gotten older, or they've had enough sex. They might be in their 30s, 40s, and they want to know how they can have something functional. So when we talk about love, like love is a force. It is something that we all express in different ways to different people, and it's pretty infinite in its definition. I think men who are afraid to love, or they have a fear of just relationships in general, or a fear of women, that's unresolved trauma. That's something that you probably need, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis. You need some form of healing to work through that. And then you also need to bring with that an awareness that the past will always replicate itself so long as you are continuously afraid of what you are afraid of. I've never been afraid to love women. And I've never really, I could say, ever really been hurt by them badly. Maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe I'm the vast outlier, and you're never going to be like me. And I got the golden genes that way. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. I've never been afraid of anything, nor have I ever been afraid of getting hurt ever. And I also was always very keenly aware of my own self-worth value. My what's the term everybody likes to use? I was always my own mental point of origin. And I had relationships that worked out. I had relationships that didn't. But I never regretted any of them. And when things didn't go that way, I always knew it was my fault, because women tend to follow your lead. And sometimes you can lead yourself off a cliff if you don't know any better. But that happens. So it never occurred to me that one should be afraid of that. It wasn't really until I found the Manosphere that I realized that there were a lot of men who were really afraid of women. They were afraid of love. They were afraid of anything that resembled intimacy, closeness, a bond, what have you. And they've done a lot of mental gymnastics in some cases to sort of construct boundaries around that they hopefully are protected from loss, which is okay, I suppose. But I don't think living that way, where you have boundaries around your self-expression, is ever going to deliver you a very fulfilling experience over the course of your life. We look up to men who are infinite in their being, and mankind always has that sort of heroic aspiration that what is a hero? The hero is the one that saves the world, and he does everything, and he can be everything. And the female fantasy, like I talked about yesterday during my talk, the female fantasy is sort of the man that does everything. He's both the brute and the cad and the gentleman and the good provider and the father and the lover and the seducer and the warrior. He's all these things at once. And I think that's a really cool sort of standard to try to aspire to. And then, what do we look for in men as men? We try to find the man that kind of is everything, who has taken one thing and made it his obsession, and can do it so many different ways and express himself so many different ways that we're always dazzled by that level of mastery. That's what we look at. So, how do you get to that level? You have to love life. You have to have a lust for life. I love everything I do. I love everybody I know. And to this point, I can't say that has not worked out. So,
I guess I've to understand love as a unconditional response to virtue. And that can be displayed by any number of means. We talk in a romantic sense. It may be to a partner whose virtues are on display, the things that I need and want and appreciate, and I have an unconditional response to that. I think that's a terribly natural progression. I think mammals are particularly adept at bonding. I know there's a lot of research in on that. People who studied the pathways to romance, to how we actually pair bond and bond. There's several different pathways. A romantic connection is clearly one of them. A simply sheer sexual attraction is another. And you can also go through a friendship route, which is not necessarily as effective, but it can be done. I don't recommend it for a whole host of reasons. But what I find interesting in the Manosphere is kind of this ugly connotation is that through the people's trauma, they came together to kind of resolve this issue. And I think inherent in that trauma, and I think a lot of the trauma is legitimate. I'm not trying to delegitimize the trauma at all. But the process of healing is that they pushed aside any unconditional responses that they would have. And in particular, where there were virtue, where they were previously harmed. I think that there's this issue where when you get burned once, you're resident to put your hand back on a stove. And that there are a number of behavioral patterns I think people have done that may have been an error that led themselves to be hurt and to ill-advisedly placed their trust and vulnerability in a pattern where they would respond unconditionally. And so I think the Manosphere in itself is going to be looking at love in the future with a different lens, as we progress to responsibly place our trust and respect in those entities and relationship structures that we can trust and honestly place an unconditional response to those virtues. But sadly, I think there's a lot of men out there that are thought leaders that are not worthy of those virtues. They know it, and therefore they will naturally shun that. And I think we're seeing a lot of that on display in their writings, in their text, and their analysis and conclusions that they draw. And that's the antithesis of love. That's a self-loathing that you see projected out. And I think ultimately what does not get resolved gets transmuted through. And I think you see that lack of love in an individual's life, that trauma, neglect, abuse, maltreatment, betrayal. I think you're seeing a lot of that projected and is being placed on love inappropriately.
Right, well, I think there's a general perception that pickup artistry in game is in some way opposed to the idea of love, looks down on it, like, oh, you're being a chump, you're being a chode, and so on. And I think that's because of the time and place where pickup artistry first became famous and got developed. And to still hold that view is kind of like a straw man. It's moved on a lot since then. So if you look at the origins of pickup artistry, it was a reaction to feminism, a reaction to the hookup culture, and it was about how can we get ours. But there was a sense of nihilism about it all that, Rome's burning, let's play the fiddle. I'm not going to jump in front of a bus myself. It's not worth it. I'll just go out and get mine. And then it developed primarily on the west coast of America in the urban centers of what I would call the degenerate cities. And the two main stars of it early on, Mystery and Style, were cluster B personalities. Mystery was compensatory narcissist, grew up extremely codependent, narcissistic parents, and then used pickup as a way of pushing that outside and turning himself into a narcissist, but not a true one, a very fragile one. And therefore that set up an adversarial relationship with women, that it's manipulative, that you get into win-lose interactions. And that, because they were the original famous pickup artists, that set the frame and that set the public perception. And when Neil Strauss's book came out as a bestseller, that's now the go-to cultural icon of the pickup artist. But this is like 2003, 2004. A lot has changed. There's been a lot of intellectual development within the game community. And one of the key things as it regards love is game is a skill set or a mindset, and pickup artistry is a lifestyle choice. They are not the same thing. You can be one without the other. You can be someone who's got a very good understanding of male-female dynamics, very good at dealing with women, but not choose to be a player, such as, say, Donald Trump right now. And then you can also get a load of players who are just utterly incompetent and have no game and just run around like headless chickens. And of course, you can have men who do both, who up until recently, I was one of them. So game, I think, is a bit like fire in that it can warm your house or it can burn it down. depending on how you control it. So there's no question that if you run around chasing skirt, especially if you are coming from a position of trauma or lack of success in the past, you'll usually hear PUAs have a zero to hero story. They'll always tell you, I was a loser, couldn't get laid, then I discovered this magic and now I'm the boss. They tend to follow this kind of narrative. So if people are coming from a position of lacking or trauma, in my case from a divorce, it can then, you add game to that, especially if you have the wrong mentors and the wrong concept of game and you don't get into the win-win, honest, open version of it, you can very easily develop a avoidant attachment disorder. Like, it used to be my relationship advice to people. This is going back like 5 years. Whereas if you've got a problem with your girlfriend, just bin her, get a new one. It's like an extreme abundance system because you know how to go out and get new women. You know how to make them like you. You know how to maneuver them into the positions you want. You know, your plates, your rotation, or that really awful word, harem. And it massively puffs up your ego. You get a lot of casual sex, feel like the boss. But what I found personally, and what a lot of my friends found, is success can be failure if you don't handle it, because you just become incapable of relating to women as anything other than a sex object. Now, you can definitely get out of this. I'm not saying, you know, if you follow a player's lifestyle, you're condemned to this, but it's a danger. Just like with fire, you've got to know how to control it. You've got to be aware of it, and you've got to be aware of the impact it has on your personality, such as accelerating your need for novelty and dopamine through having so much novelty and dopamine. So I think I've come out of that. I know other friends who never even fell into that trap. But I think this is where the bad reputation of pickup artistry comes as it relates to love and attachment and getting married, is you can go through this cycle. And I think people who don't like pickup will tend to latch onto that element of it, caricature it, and say, look, pickup's a load of shit, it turns you into a weirdo.
All right. Yeah. Be sorry. This is my intimidated face. Those of you who've been following me for a while, you don't see this much. I could, for just on the few things the last three gentlemen have said, I could probably talk for an hour and a half, just trying to pull that apart and sort of look at it and explore it. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying the level at this convention is higher than I thought. I kind of suspected some of the guys were just strut around on stage shouting respect to the cock, and I'm slightly disappointed that nobody has. The cock. Respect to the cock. In honor of Tom Cruise, I just wanted to say that. Respect to the cock. Wow. So where should we take this? Culturally, politically, sociologically? The ideas that I just heard that would be condensed would be that some of the guys that we have in this community that I'm a newcomer to, that I'm learning, are clearly traumatized. They've built scar tissue psychologically and emotionally around that trauma, and then their worldview is the worldview of a traumatized person. That includes love, because that is where intimacy is. When we're talking about emotional dysregulation, personality disorders, and emotional flashbacks, because all personality disorders are as a response to trauma. As Ivan said the other day, everybody wants to be a psychopath, ain't nobody want to lift no heavy ass trauma. Very, very true. It's a response to pain. And so if you're very emotionally dysregulated, you're going to see things in a fucked up way. You're going to live in a dark reality tunnel. We call this post-traumatic embitterment syndrome. And so love is intimacy. And intimacy is always the biggest trigger of emotional flashbacks. And that's what holds the personality disorders in place. So this probably is a topic that would be worth coming back to again and again and again. Obviously, we all have a lot to say about it, but we can make love great again. I think that we can make it safe again. We can make it. Sorry, Anthony.
I have the hat. No, I have the hat.
You have that hat?
I didn't bring it. It's in Florida.
Oh, okay.
He wore it on it. I interviewed him. He wore it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I offered him
Okay.
a couple options. He's like, "Oh, I'll take that one." Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, I think that's a great thing for us to push forward and go, look, it's not about respect the cock and stomping around on stage. It's actually like, yeah, we want intimate bonds.
Well, I'll do that. I mean, if we gotta do that, I'll say that shit.
Yeah,
Maybe Steve will get
absolutely.
it.
Oh,
Absolutely. You're the man. You're the man for that job. Fuck yeah. So what the last thing I just want to close on with, because I could go on about this a lot, is when people have scar tissue and they're responding to pain, they want to be invulnerable. the stereotype we've been fed is that's men. Men want to be shielded. It's so not true. I've been working 80% with women for the last 7 years. The amount of armored, toxically masculine women that I've encountered is it's the majority because of pain. You want to shield from the pain. But the tricky thing is, if there's no vulnerability, you can't have intimacy. And if you can't have intimacy, there's no love. And I would finish by saying we now live in a love deficit culture, a love deficit environment. And that's why people are addicted to social media, because we're not paying each other attention. And it's all kinds of love. It's love between parents and children. It could be love between friends. It could be love between, whatever it is. It's not, we've sexualized it. That's an infantile response. Everybody's now obsessed with sex because we're also sexually repressed. So you think love, you think romantic movies, you think sex. It needs to be more than that. It can be love with a little L, and it should be more out there in the environment. I'll stop there.
Shall I go? Yeah. Okay. All right. So my talk yesterday was about when I was coming from a closed heart. I saw things in a very fearful way. I wanted to control and force outcomes. And actually, my highest lay count, if you like, came at a time when I was at my lowest and I had very little self-love. And actually, when I fostered that self-love and I sort of took care of myself, built up that self-esteem, I didn't see women in the same way. There's a guy called Joe Dispenza who talks about neurology of the pathways in the brain. He says, when you're coming from fear, you're coming from survival. You see the territory as objects and things, and you need to control those objects and things to get that thing that you need. He says, when you're coming from love, you see everything as potential and possibility, and you don't need to force and control outcomes. Now, when I was a pickup artist, my heart had closed. I was coming from fear and survival, and I needed to get those girls, otherwise I wouldn't feel good. It was external. I needed that external validation. Like Pac-Man, I gave the example of Pac-Man needs his piece, he needs his pill to make himself feel temporarily whole. But when I started to heal my own heart, I was no longer coming from forcing control outcomes. I was no longer coming from a place of taking. I came from a place of just expressing, like the sun, just wanting to shine on people. And if I shine on you and you step in the shade, how am I going to feel? How's the sun going to feel? There's no rejection for the sun. But if I'm going out there like the beggar, hitting the streets on a Saturday trying to do game, and I don't get my results, I don't get my girls, what do we call that? I'm rejected. You see, it's coming, for me, the game paradigm's coming from a closed heart. It's not coming from a loving place. When you do that self-love, when you do that artistry, I call it artistry, you see the world in a totally different place. You're no longer trying to control and force outcomes. You see the world when you go into a bar. I don't see it like Terminator. I want your boots and your motorcycle. And you see this drop down red screen and you're sort of looking for your target with your obstacle and your wingman and your bit shields and it's military. Come on, guys, it's war. You're seeing women as like going to war, like you're trying to defeat them. I see it as one big pool of potential. I walk into a place, potential lovers, potential best friends, potential great stories to share, potential just great jokes to be had. And I don't need to force and control anything. I can go into this like a lucid dream and be both the participant and the creator. And no matter what happens, I always come away winning. I never go home with my tail between my legs with my wingmen and think, how can we create a better field report, or how can we create a better military strategy next time? One's coming from fear, a lack of love, and the other one's coming from love. That's what I want to say about that.
At the risk of sounding extremely cheesy, I love that we're talking about love. I love that I have an entire panel of men talking about this from the Manosphere and like a red pill perspective. I didn't even anticipate this whole episode going like this, but it has. I thought it'd be just a quick thing. They'd kind of go back and forth and like, yeah, you're amazing. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Fuck yeah. I'm still 30 myself, so these are issues I'm still grappling with and trying to understand. I've been through quite a bit with women at this age. Everybody knows my Mary Medusa story, for example. That's like famous on YouTube and shit. It's more than that. I've had a lot, some before that and a lot since that. So I'm happy that we're talking about it, and I'm very curious to keep talking about it over time. And I hope that this spreads out into the Manosphere too, beyond this show and beyond this episode. It's an important discussion, and I'm glad that these guys are here talking about it. Very real shit, raw shit. And we'll do it more just like Random was talking about.
So before I talk about love, I want to give you all a little history lesson to kind of go off of what you were saying about mystery and styles. There was a guy by the name of Doc Love in the 70s. I was told that he learned from pimps, players, Max. He didn't learn the game because the game is not about women. He took a little piece of the game, a pinch of the game that about the women. And he turned that into something. And he had an apprentice named Ross Jeffries, who took NLP and combined that and came up with speed seduction. He had his marketer was Eben something, the W You're Dating guy, whoever, W Dating, right, who then brought in mystery and style. So that's how that went. But what a lot of guys don't understand and don't realize is that women are emotional. They're mental. Y'all don't know about mental stimulation. Women are mentally turned on. It's not the physical. They like sex, but they love the mental, the touch, the whisper, being held. When I was a gigolo, that was what I got paid for. I didn't get paid for the sex. I got paid for holding, cuddling, talking, and listening. That was what I got paid for, period. The thing that y'all got to understand is that the stuff that y'all learning, it's going to get you women, but it's not going to help you keep them. Because a lot of you guys have no idea that when you get with a woman, oh man, it's a shift from 100 to a 0. You got to learn how to be, you got to figure, you are broken up into many sides. You've got your romantic side, you're sensual, you're seductive, you're romantic. You've got your dirty, naughty, kinky. You got all these different sides that you have, but you've got to learn. Yes, y'all got to understand, man, walking up to a woman and talking to her has nothing to do with the game. That's just walking up to a woman and talking to her. It's what you do afterwards. When she gets in touch with you or y'all exchange information, that's when the game begins. And that's when she's going to weigh you out with all the other guys who came before you and after you. And again, mental stimulation. It's that phone call. It's that text message. It's being smooth, and we call it talking yak. It's being smooth, like white chocolate, other side of the pillow. Smooth like him over there, my boy George. But what I'm saying to you guys is this. If you don't learn the mental aspects.
George is so smooth, he literally has a girl on his arm right now.
I know he does. Pan Kent, right, yes. He's so smooth, yeah, he's got a girl. But that's what I'm saying to y'all guys real quick is that you've got to understand that, yes, you can talk to a woman, and yes, you can probably pick her up, and yes, you can probably sleep with her. But the real man wants receipts where she sells him to the other woman. It's not just about having sex, eating her out, and sleeping with her. Y'all don't even know about the afterplay. Nobody's ever told y'all to get some lotion, put it in a bowl, warm it up for 15 seconds, and rub her body down. You know what that does? That gets her to tell all of her other girlfriends the things that they're missing in their relationships, and then they're going to come knocking on your door because you're able to fulfill something that their men can't fulfill. The biggest thing that made me money is that the 90% of y'all neglect women. Now, again, I'm all man. I'm talking about love. But in order to love a woman right, you got to love yourself. I love her ass and the curves and the hips and thighs, but I love myself that much more. We love her enough to let her ass go, but love me enough to keep building and growing myself and learning and picking up things. So just remember, guys, we're about to take questions and stuff, or AJ, I'll throw it to you one. But at the end of the day, guys, y'all got to remember the mental aspects of sex. Women are mentally stimulated, i.e. 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey. Do your homework. Look at the statistics of the books and the movies. They had to put plastic covers on the seats in the movie theaters because the women were coming. They had to move dildos and cucumbers from, y'all laugh, I'm being serious. There's a lot, and like AJ said, the romantic hero, he said it right. A woman, boring life, boring husband. Asshole rides into town, walks into town, flies into town. They get together, they just cannot connect. He gets on her nerves, but because he was all the things that AJ was saying about the romantic hero, she can't stop mentally thinking about him because he's already mentally fucking her without fucking her. That's the power of being a man who loves himself. Because again, I'll ask anyone to say, I'm sorry, I don't make it about sex because I'm already fucking her when I'm talking to her. I make it about my time. That's why she comes and wants to fuck me instead of me trying to fuck her. That's love to me. Hey, Jake.
No, that's phenomenal, Steve. I mean, I said that yesterday in the presentation that sex for women, sexuality, intimacy, it's 90% psychological, 10% mechanical. Yeah, that's sometimes been my sort of critique of the classical sort of RP schemas. Is it when you make relationships very mechanistic, you have frame, you have what you want to maintain the frame. You have to always be aware of like your position all these times. You have to obey certain rules. Yeah, you could do all those things, but that's not what it makes a woman attached to you, which a lot of men don't want to admit. They want someone to be attached to them. They want intimacy. They want a woman to adore them. How do you do that? You have to give her an incomparable experience. That's in here. That's in here. It's not out here. You can be an attractive guy. You could be an attractive guy that let's say you look like me. I'm going to just pat my own ass right now. Let's say you look like me, but you talk to a girl and you're fucking boring. And that's a huge letdown because she looks at you and she gets something to her head that, wow, she's thinking of possibilities and potential and what's he going to say and how's he going to make me feel? And then you just fall flat. You fall completely flat and you have killed all attraction. And when you confine relationships and intimacy within very fixated paradigms, you're going to kill the intimacy in attraction because how can it exist? You need to make intimacy infinite. You need to have a woman thinking about you all the time, thinking about what's he going to do, how's he going to make me feel, whether it be physical, sensual, sexual, whatever. It's all of those things. It's all of those things. A man that does all those things, yes, a girl's going to like you. You have to be really reductionistic. If you're not that, and you define yourself with very harsh borders, you're fucking replaceable. And women manipulate and use and discard men as much as a man might think he can manipulate and use and discard women. And that's kind of the position we're in socially. We have a whole society of people with attachment disorders who don't want intimacy, who have walls up. And then for women, men are just sexual objects. The female, the cock carousel and the women that sleep with all the men, those are women that view men as sexual objects. They're just a thing. They're an appendage. And same thing for the men who get stuck in that spiral of just pure sex, nothing else. Women are objects. Women are things. We both have objectified each other. And no one's very happy actually living that at all. So how do you get out of that? You got to think in terms of broader possibilities.
Buy a ticket to the 21 convention.
Yeah.
Buy a ticket for the fall.
Yes, and we got questions now, guys. If y'all want to take questions, please let us know. We'll take questions. And while we're waiting, guys, this is being brought to you by the 21 Convention that's going on in Orlando, Florida, October 24th through the 27th, guys. You can get your tickets at the21convention.org. Okay, we're ready to take questions.
Take them online too.
Hey guys, my question is, one way for me to be more of a vulnerable man has been to give people benefit of doubt. But is there any other way to be more vulnerable instead of giving people benefit of doubt? Are there any other ways I can become like a more vulnerable man, more open to understand people, be open to them, have new relationships?
You can repeat the question too.
Okay, how do you become a more vulnerable man around people and relationships? Socrates?
Oh, I'm going to get thrown on that one. In all honesty, you're going to need to have confidence. And the confidence, I think there's kind of a nice equation that Ken Curry gave us at the Patriarch Convention. It's a combination of having a good, strong self-identity, knowing who you are, and coupling that with ability. So let's look at this in regards to being vulnerable. If we fear rejection, we're not going to be vulnerable. If we fear that we're going to be hurt by someone's actions, we make room for this to occur, which needs to happen when we want intimacy. I think we're going to have to look at saying, okay, let's make sure that my sense of who I am is well grounded, but then do I have compatible skills associated with rejection, with failure, with receiving negative impact? For example, Nick and I are sitting next to each other, and years ago, I had put out one of my first videos, actually my first video for the 21 Convention, and he had some honest to God criticism of it, and feedback. And that feedback went wild. And everybody would think that he and I would not get along. And unfortunately, it's been 8 years past, and I've never had a chance to actually speak with him and thank him for, one, spending that time to review the content, to objectively look at it, point out positive elements, and then point out issues where I could improve or be more effective in reaching a target audience. And it was some of the best commentary that I ever received from a thought leader at the time, and I was thoroughly impressed by it. And at no point did I ever feel threatened by it. No point did I ever feel insecure about it or take any sort of shame on it. And part of that is because I had a good sense and grounding of who I was, what I was doing, and why I was doing it. And I had the skill set, having been traumatized in architecture school, to face sort of that criticism and feedback. And I was indoctrinated to a lot of it. So when you have somebody like Nick, who's a thought leader in his field, commentating and giving a viewpoint on it, I saw it as an opportunity to further grow and expand, and you could, quote, be vulnerable to it without being damaged by that. And so I would make sure that if you have concerns about it, look at your self-identity, make sure it's well-grounded, and then make sure you develop the skills of receiving feedback, receiving criticism. It's very easy to project those things. It's another to empathetically listen to people and take constructive criticism. And that's a skill set. It's a life skill.
Nick, before you go, does anyone else want to answer that question as well? Because you want to answer it. Okay, you want to. Okay. Just want to make sure, because we want to make sure we get everybody in the time limit. So Nick, go ahead. I'm sorry. Do you want to say something?
For this one?
Oh yes, you go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think adversity is not something to be avoided if you want to be strong. I think it's a fundamental building block of being a man, is you must struggle against adversity. And it's the discipline, it's the endurance, it's the overcoming which rebuilds you, like quite literally in the gym, by pushing against heavy weights to create hypertrophy to build stronger. And that's why, for example, in pickup artistry, you're making yourself very vulnerable, because you're going out into the street and you're finding out what girls really think of you. And most men live in a web of delusion about what their real value is, what their real game's like, what their charisma's really like. And they put all these buffers around themselves to avoid honest feedback. And one of the great things about cold approach is that you just cut right to the core. And in day game particularly, because it's in the daytime and you're sober and it's just you and the girl with no distractions like you might get in, say, a nightclub. You haven't been pre-approved like you might have done on Tinder when you both swipe right. You're not relying on some kind of lifestyle, like a Bilzerian-esque lifestyle, where you're essentially whoring. Is what you're doing is you're just going out like, me as a man. It's just me here. Everything I carry within myself is my value proposition. You step up to the girl you like and you make your play. Now, of course, most girls are going to say no. That's the nature of the game. But this rejection is not something to avoid. It's not something to reframe yourself out of, any more than you go to the gym and you deliberately lift light weights so you don't get tired. Right? You don't go into a boxing gym and spend the whole time scuttling backwards with your hands up, never engaging, right? Just because you're scared of getting hit. You have to take the adversity head on, because it's by taking the adversity head on with a positive attitude, processing the feedback, even when it hurts, and then rebuilding, using that as information. That is what makes you better. That's what gets results, and that's what builds self-confidence. So with vulnerability, to go back to the original question, is one way to be vulnerable is go out and try. Go out and cold approach, and don't see rejection as a negative thing. See it as good feedback on what you're doing well, what you're doing bad, where your value is, and it's a nice splash of cold water. Getting, you walk up to a hot girl and she gives you like the eye roll and she's like, oh, fuck off, little man. It's like a splash of cold water over your face, and it's quite invigorating. You often feel good after you get it, because you're like, whew, oh, I dealt with that. Right, next one. And the next one goes better.
Where are you, sir? The man who asked the question. Are you willing to be hurt?
Yes, I like it, actually.
You pervert. Who is this guy? He said, yes, I like it, actually. I have 6 quick pieces of advice for you. For vulnerability, 1, you must be willing to be hurt. That needs to be present in the environment as a possibility, like these gentlemen were just saying. This could hurt. The second thing is learn to be present in a Zen-like meditative way. Be very, very present. We were talking yesterday about yin and yang. I practice yin every day whenever I'm working with a client. I provide a space within which they can open up. The third thing is you look and listen when they're talking. Look at them, listen to them. I don't know if the gentleman's in the room, the paratrooper, the Danish-American paratrooper, but I was talking to him last night. And inside of 15, 20 minutes, I started sharing pieces of my life I haven't told anybody in years. And then afterwards, I was like, why did I do that? And then I was like, well, the Polish side is actually really good. No, because he was present and he was looking at me and listening to me, I opened up. Because he was vulnerable, I then reflected back the vulnerability and I opened up. Be honest, super honest. Tell the truth about who you are and what you want. Be transparent. As Dave always says, be transparent. And the last thing is, be brave. Be brave.
AJ?
That was really good, Richard. You kind of said about most of what I was going to say, a bit better. And then I know, the vulnerability question, I know that the Manosphere retards, because they're fucking emotional cripples, they're going to jump all over that. Oh, we're talking about vulnerability. As a man, you want to qualify vulnerability that what you don't want to do in being vulnerable is overexpress. Vulnerability is not about excessively bleeding yourself of emotions. It's really just, as Richard said, you're being receptive to other people. When you're a man who you're calm, you have confidence, he said, you have a sense of sort of zenness about you, where people, they feel stable being around you. You seem like someone that they'd want to talk to. You're going to open yourself up to potentials that way. Yeah, someone that's vulnerable is someone that, like you're not afraid of being hurt, you're not closed off, but you just represent sort of a pathway to have an experience with somebody. And if you come across as that kind of person, you're going to have a great time with everyone you meet. Not every person, obviously, but people are going to be receptive to you. The thing that can shoot guys in the foot is if you take an overly scripted approach to interactions, whether it be men, whether it be women, whether even be befriending other men, where you sort of have these barriers up where you don't want to give away too much of yourself, but you also want to get to know the person, but you also don't want to get rejected, but you also want them to think highly of you, but you don't want to say the wrong thing. So you've got all this over-analysis going on at the same time. People aren't going to want to get to know you, or they'll be able to tell talking to you that's very stilted. And that's the thing I think sometimes guys fall into, where it's very easy to follow scripts. The PA, that was a very good thing. You can follow scripts. You can follow certain things that will provoke a response. But then you're not really that person. You're just the script. You're not really what you're saying you are. You're not really how you're representing yourself. You're just sort of the mask that you put on. And then as soon as the person pushes a little bit deeper, or that slip aside, oh, there's nothing there. You're empty. And you want to avoid that. And part of that just comes with this being uncomfortable with things that will make you uncomfortable. I've had many uncomfortable experiences in my life where I'm like, wow, that either went poorly or went weird, or I can't believe I got myself in that situation. But they all taught me something. And I never walked away of I lost a piece of myself that I can never get back, and I'm hurt now. No, you live and you learn that way. So if you incorporate all those elements, as everyone has said, you'll be that guy that you'll have fun with people. And for all the men here as well, all the men listening, I think on a certain level, the fear of intimacy with women, that's not the big issue. It's a fear of intimacy with other men. A lot of men today, they lack camaraderie, they lack fraternity, they lack brothers, they lack male friendship. And getting along with guys, it means having your balls busted. It means being made fun of. It means that you're going to be around guys that maybe they're better looking than you, or they make you feel small, or you feel insecure. That's the same. Men have the same sort of fears around men as they do around women, except it's in obviously a masculine sense. So if you're a man where let's say you're watching this and you lack male friends, that you have to go make friends. Men oftentimes have this reticence of it's gay to try to make friends with other men. That's why you're all fucking lonely. That's why you're all lonely. So don't be afraid of that. Vulnerability, it applies across the whole spectrum.
All right, next question, please.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for sharing again your knowledge with us. In the context of loving yourself as being the base of loving the world and bringing oneself into the world, I see it as a journey, as an ideal, and I want to ask you, gentlemen, what would be a question or an angle to look towards self-loving, to initiate this journey towards loving oneself, and continuing that journey into loving oneself deeply, or more deep, or more expanded, so to say.
Okay, we are, since the time, I have something to say, but does anyone else would like to say something as well? Anyone? Okay. The thing is I'm going to be talking about this in Orlando, so I'm kind of giving you a sneak preview. I always loved this guy named Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. He is a fucking asshole who only thinks about himself, period. He doesn't give a fuck what people think. He's going to tell you what's on his mind, and he doesn't care what your reaction is. Why? Because when it's a thing I always say, it's not high tolerance or low tolerance, it's no tolerance. That means you got to accept yourself, but you got to make sure people accept you for what you see yourself as. And that means if they can't accept you for who you are and what you are, then you're going to have to let them go out of your life, because you love them to keep them around, but you have to love them enough to let them go. And it's either man, woman, Bigfoot, or whatever you want to call it. When they realize that your motherfucking ass doesn't give a fuck, they're going to start giving more of a fuck, because they don't realize men like that. But does anyone have anything to say on that? Okay. Do we have another question?
Yeah, you can check online too.
Okay, yeah.
It's like 3 a.m.
It's 3 a.m.
It's like 4 a.m.
I'll
now.
say something to
Yeah.
the self-love thing, actually. Yeah. I think this is another thing that's just lacking in modern culture where, like Steve, you talked about you had mentors as a young man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we've all had mentors, or maybe some of us have not, but we've become that for people. Part of love is this gratitude for these people helping you. So the question of how to develop self-love. I think oftentimes when people ask that question, I don't know if they ever had someone that was that person for them that really loved them in a way. But when you teach somebody, or you're passing on knowledge, or you're sort of entrusted to take care of somebody, and that could be a younger brother, that could be a sibling, that could be a pet. You realize that life, things are alive. They appreciate tenderness. They appreciate affection. They appreciate someone being there for them, and you have to be that for yourself. It's very common for guys to enter states of self-loathing where they hate themselves for their decisions or their inadequacies or what they wish they were, and that can just go on forever. That goes on absolutely forever. And then everybody sees that in you. People can see that you have that self-pity that way. Yeah, and part of letting go of that, there's this, on a very basic level, it's gratitude for being alive. And it's gratitude for whatever, I keep talking about this, but it's gratitude for what your potential is and really trying to explore that. And then when you start doing that as a man, you start seeking out something, you start improving, other people will start to appreciate you. You'll be a role model for something. People will want to invest their time in you, and it might take a long time to get there. That might take 10 years. Maybe if you really have issues of sort of like self-loathing, self-hatred, your parents were not there for you that way. It can take a long time. But if you do the work and you get to that point, you'll eventually hit a stage where you're happy with yourself, and you like who you are, and other people like that you like who you are. And that's always the funny thing. If you get to that point, you realize that once you love yourself, other people want to love you. And you don't have to ask them for it. You're not begging for it. That dynamic is gone. So, this however long it takes, that's how long it takes.
Yeah, please. And then we'll get your question after that. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I agree with what AJ was just, not AJ. It's AJ as well. I get confused. Right.
AJ with it. Yeah.
What AJ is saying, right. I just want to add one proviso on that is I've heard it said that the men's community is called self-development and women's community is called self-acceptance. I think it's a different attitude on masculine and feminine on how you go about liking yourself. So I think inner game work, straightening out the kinks of your own mind, resolving trauma, learning positive mindsets, these are all something you absolutely must do. But I think they tend to come more on the self-acceptance side. I think as a man, you still got to actually go out and achieve something. There's a burden of performance, and it's not just a burden of performance from society. It's a burden of performance that your self-esteem places upon you. You have to go out and do stuff. So I don't want to caricature what AJ was saying as navel gazing. It's not. But if you go off target with that, it can become navel gazing. So, Miyamoto Musashi might have spent 3 years sitting in a room where the monk put him reading books and sorting himself out, but he still went out as a swordsman and challenged himself to learn the way of Bushido. Right. So I often characterize what I did as the player's journey. It's like the hero's journey, just with a lot more shagging. And it's a process of going into yourself, finding out who you are, facing challenge, facing adversity, going down into the abyss, down to find the treasure, and then coming out and re-engage with the normal world with a great understanding of yourself. Now, you can't do that sitting in your bedroom watching YouTube. Even, Red Man Group, good shows. It's not enough. You got to go out and do something. Now, it doesn't need to be chasing skirt. It can be go to the gym, build a good body. It can be write a great book. It can be build a business. It can be whatever. But when you go to bed at night, you got to think, right, I'm on a project. I've got a plan. I'm going somewhere. Because I think that is an incredibly important part of male self-esteem, giving yourself reasons to be confident.
Excellent. Last question, sir?
Oh, we got to wrap.
Oh, we got to wrap?
Yeah, we
Okay.
gotta wrap, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, man.
Well, when we get up, after. Okay, well, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up real quick. So if y'all could, for a quick 30 seconds, just give a final 30 seconds to everybody real quick before we wrap this up, please.
I hope that this is a topic that we can return to again and again. I'm sure that we can. I think the essence of what we're actually looking for, to sound a little bit woo, is love and is connection. And I think that's key to all of this.
Cool. Yeah, I also didn't get a chance to answer about the vulnerability one, but for me, going first, being able to go first, lead first, that's what the real alpha does. He's willing to be hurt first. He's the one who cuts through the jungle first and creates a path for others to come through. So being able to put yourself into a situation where you could be the one that gets hurt, like Anthony's putting himself in a position here where he's willing to stand up against what he thinks going wrong in society, and he could get hurt for this, and he has probably already. So that to me is the real alpha, someone who's ready to go first, and that is the true vulnerable self. So yeah, that was what I wanted to say for that.
Thanks, man. Fuck yeah. I got nothing to add to that. I mean, holy fuck. Tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we'll get more of these episodes. All these guys back on the show. Fuck yeah.
I just want to say, are you bringing more to the table than just your ass?
That's a great episode, guys. That was a great episode. You guys know where to find us. I never actually. I think everyone watching this knows that who I am, but maybe I'm just being an asshole. Cortezsite.com, Cortez.site.com. My full name is Alexander Juan Cortez. You can follow me on Twitter. Lift weights. If you do nothing else, just lift weights and get stronger.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I fundamentally believe everybody understands who they are, where they're going to go, the path that you're currently on. I would recommend that you look at where you would like to go, the world you'd like to live in, and who you would like to be. Have that in front of you, and then choose admirably.
Okay, I'd just like to say I'm very pleased to have been on here. I usually speak at pickup events, which is very narrow focus. So it's nice to bounce ideas around on guys who are talking about masculinity from different perspective. Manosphere is a lot wider than just pickup.
All right, guys, tacticalsoap.com. Make sure you check out the 21 Convention, October 24th through the 27th. Get your tickets at the 21convention.org. This is the Red Man Group. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and we're out.
Peace.